Hey guys, Andre from High Performance Academy here. Welcome along to another one of our webinars. I apologise that we have been absent for a little while. We've been pretty flat out. We were over at SEMA for a couple of weeks, basically touring around doing some content while we were over in the US, as well as obviously attending the SEMA show. So we've got plenty of great content coming up from SEMA. I'm going to go over a couple of my favourite takeaways from the SEMA show during this pre-show in a minute. Before we get into that though, I just wanted to basically update you on where we are with our racing. So for those who have been following these pre-shows, you'll know that Ben and I have been competing this year in the South Island Endurance Series. So it's a 4-round championship held here, unsurprisingly, in the South Island of New Zealand. And we were only able to compete in 3 of those rounds. We missed out on one because we had a clash with World Time Attack. So we started off in Tiratonga. It was about probably 8 or 10 weeks ago now. Then we went to our local track, Highlands Motorsport Park, and then before we flew out to the US, we headed up to Christchurch, about 6 or 7 hours to the north of where we are in Queenstown, and we competed at a track called Ruapuna. So over the course of the 3 races we did compete in, we've had a bit of an up and down sort of run through things. We've had our fair share of problems, but we've learned a lot from those problems, and most of the time we sort of came out feeling pretty positive about how everything sort of worked out. We were pretty confident going into Ruapuna, despite the fact that Ben and I hadn't driven there before. We figured that we had got on top of the little gremlins that we'd had creeping in through the last 2 rounds that kind of meant that we didn't end up really getting a representative placing in our class. So one of the things that we had done was fitted our Izze Racing tyre temperature and pressure monitoring system. So these are an internal sensor. I've talked about them in other pre-shows, so I won't get into too much detail about the sensor itself, but basically it's a tyre pressure monitoring sensor that goes inside of the wheel, and this one's a little bit special though because it's got a 16-channel infrared temperature array that basically looks at the carcass temperature on the inside of the tyre. We're quite excited because we managed to couple this up with our telemetry system, our MoTeC T2 Telemetry system. We'll just jump across to my laptop for a second and I'll show you the screen that we had visible back in the pit. So this is what was visible on our telemetry. So this one specifically, we were looking at some tyre related data. Obviously over on the right hand side we've got our track map, and that shows in real time whereabouts the car is on the track. This information that we've got down here was our new addition though. So on the left hand side here we've got our 4 tyre pressures, and we've sort of laid those out pretty sensibly, obviously, so you can see left front, right front, etc, etc. Also color coded those because it's really easy to glance at a color and know whether you're in the ballpark. So obviously at this particular point we've got 3 tires that are a little bit low there in terms of pressure, and we've also got the internal carcass temperature. So rather than showing 16 pieces of data across all 4 tires, I just chose a central temperature there, so I've just got a bit of an idea of what the tires are doing. Not a great amount of use for the driver out in the car. Obviously you're not going to be monitoring this sort of stuff while you're hammering around a racetrack, but it is useful for setting up driver warnings if you've got a tyre that's going flat. More to the point, the crew could monitor this in a little bit more detail than the drivers are able to do. So the actual race itself, the track, the qualifying setup went really well. I qualified the car I think in 2nd in our class. We decided that I was going to start, so it's a 1-hour endurance race, so we basically split the driving pretty much 50-50. We decided that I would start this one. It's a rolling start, and I managed to get a cracker of a start, managed to I think make up 3 places off the start, and basically settled into a bit of a rhythm. Relatively uneventful race. There was no safety cars, nothing really untoward happened, and I sort of hammered around keeping a pretty good pace, picked up another place during my stint, pitted, Ben went out, he did his thing, everything was going really well until we were 6 minutes from the end of the race. And at this point we were first in our class, and I think we had something in the region of about a 45-second lead on the next place car. And 6 minutes to run, Ben reported over the radio that he'd broken an axle, which was pretty devastating. So he came into the pits, really there's nothing we could do. And if we jump across to my laptop screen, we can see this is the result. Basically just sheared the end of the axle off, and not really going to finish 6 minutes of racing with an axle flapping around like that. Now there is a bit of a backstory to this. I don't want to get into too much detail because we will go over it in our vlog that's coming out about this. But essentially we've been been having problems with our axles from round one. The car, as we bought it, had a set of Driveshaft Shop axles in it. We had some problems with their lower horsepower spec axle, so we jumped up to their 1000 horsepower spec axle before our second round of competition, and basically we found that the axles ended up keep popping out of the diff center, and they're a relatively standard axle which is retained in the LSD center using a circlip, so basically nothing particularly obvious there as to why that was the case. We ended up concluding that when we put them side by side with our stock axles, they were around about 25 millimeters shorter. So basically, with the car sitting with the axles fitted, there's a bit of pressure on the axle trying to pull it out of the center. Obviously, if you get the thing hot, you drive around the track, go over some curbs, etc., that can be enough to pull it out of the diff center. So a little bit disappointing, really, with that situation. We're still working through this with Driveshaft Shop. They've got us some other bars in the air at the moment, so hopefully we'll have those and that'll resolve our problems. So when the drive shafts pop out, of course, they start leaking diff oil. We still have drive, but it leaks diff oil because the seal surface is no longer in contact with the inner CV. So we went to Ruapuna thinking we had everything dialed in, everything was sorted, did a full day of practice, probably 70 or 80 laps with no issues whatsoever. On the race day, Ben went out to do a scrub session which was about 10 minutes long, did all of about 2 laps and ended up with smoke coming out the back of the car. One of the axles had popped out, diff oil was getting onto the exhaust. So at this point we're in basically a bit of a situation where we had to make a quick call. We had qualifying, which was only half an hour away, then we had about an hour gap to the race. Because of the situation, we weren't confident that we were going to get through a 1 hour race with the Driveshaft Shop axles in place. We didn't want to get DNF for a mechanical black flag, so we decided to swap back in our stock axles. Now, it might sound a little bit silly, but the car does only produce 450 horsepower, and we're not doing standing starts or anything that's really hard on the axles. They also had managed to get through our first round, so we were reasonably confident that they would work. Put those in, we qualified the car, went out for the race, and of course, well, the rest is history. So long story short, definitely need some better quality axles, definitely need some axles that are the right length. So we will see where we get to once those are in. Now, if you are interested in following along with our racing, we'll just jump across to my laptop screen. We have been running or compiling a vlog from the 3 events we went to. So this is a little bit different to our usual style on YouTube. It's a little bit more sort of behind the scenes, a little bit less produced and a little bit more off the cuff. If you are interested in having a look at that racing, go check that out on our YouTube channel. I know there's a bunch of you already watching on YouTube, but for those who aren't, you can go search that out. You'll get a really good feel for what goes into a weekend of racing. And if you like that particular video, then we have got our second round Highlands video coming out, which should be available within about the next week or so. Now, as I mentioned, after our racing, we did head across to SEMA, but on our way we stopped via Texas and we went to COBB. And the reason we went to COBB is we wanted to film a worked example to add into our practical reflash tuning course. So if we head across to my laptop screen again, this is the car that we chose to start this procedure with. So this is a 2015 Subaru WRX, US domestic market model, understandably. So we're tuning this on the COBB Access Port platform. And just a quick screenshot of what we can sort of expect with these cars. It's actually pretty impressive. So the red line down here at the bottom, this is stock, and on the Dynojet dyno, these can produce around about 220 wheel horsepower stock, running on 93 octane pump gas. The blue lines that we can see here, this is with the tune and some basic bolt-ons. So there's an intake system, an intercooler, and a turbo back exhaust. So nothing particular over the top, just some basic bolt-ons to really optimize what's there. So that takes you from 220 up to about 310, 320 wheel horsepower. Massive gains, massive improvement in power. Understandably though, on pump gas you are very knock limited when you're starting to push the engine as hard as that. So the green run there is what you can expect if you run an E50 mix, so all the way up to 380 wheel horsepower. So we have got a full worked example on that particular car, albeit on pump gas. gas, not on the E50 mix, and we'll go through exactly how the access port system works. In particular, we'll just jump across to the Access Tuner Pro software. One of the really nice features with the COBB system is the ability to have real-time tuning, which is not that common with a lot of reflash systems. Often you have to make your tuning changes offline and then flash them in. So here you've got a set of real-time tables here. The one I've just jumped onto there is the closed loop fueling target base table, and you've got that shown here. Obviously load on the horizontal axis and RPM on the vertical axis, and then it's shown graphically as well. So basically gives you the ability to make the majority of the tuning changes that you're going to be making live without having to shut the car off and retune. Probably one of the more common ones that we would actually be using here is the MAF calibration to optimize that. So that worked example, hopefully we should be able to have that out before the end of the year. If you are already a member, we will be sending out an email when that is added into our practical reflash tuning course. Interesting though as well with the COBB system, rather than just relying on the way the factory ECU operates and giving you access to those tables like a lot of reflash systems do, particularly for those of you who are tuning using open source software, this is the way we generally are stuck with doing things. COBB have the ability to basically rewrite the way the entire system works, simplifying some aspects and adding functionality that was never available from the stock ECU. So as I say, that's coming out. Look forward to that. Now, as well, while we were over there, we did attend the show. So there's a couple of just quick glimpses of cars or things that took my eye while we were there. So the first one here, probably a little bit unusual, but I do have a soft spot for Toyota Starlets. It was one of my first project cars, and when you're walking around seeing cars that have probably had $200,000, $300,000 spent on them, and they're all 2018, 2019, or in the case of SEMA this year, it seemed to be the year of the A90 Supra. It was quite refreshing to see something from the early 80s, a small, lightweight Japanese rear-wheel drive car. So this particular Toyota Starlet had been fitted with a full TRD, genuine TRD body kit. Probably the more interesting aspect though was the engine running in it. So it's got a Honda F20C out of an S2000, has been turbocharged with a Garrett GT35. It's producing around about 600 horsepower, feeding that through an S2000 6-speed rear-wheel drive gearbox, which understandably in a car that weighs I think total about 830 kgs, has the wheelbase of a probably a go-kart. That's going to be a fairly lively car to drive. So there was a pretty big focus there. I'll just jump back on the Aero. So we've got a tech tour on that coming up, probably be a little way off before we get to that. Now, unless you've been under a rock, if you are on social media and you saw any posts from SEMA, you probably heard about the Turbosmart electronic wastegate. So we've got two varieties here. This is their throttle body or butterfly style wastegate. They've also got their conventional wastegate with the electronic top on it, or electric controlled top on it. And there's been a lot of talk about this. One of the things we saw with a lot of people posting about the Turbosmart wastegates was there wasn't a lot of real detail about how they worked, what we'd need to actually operate them. So we dug a little bit deeper. We've got a tech tour, or an interview I should say, with Chris from Turbosmart that goes into a lot more detail. But briefly, these aren't exactly anything new. Obviously OEs have been using electric wastegate actuators for some time, but understandably there are some limitations with the OE applications, particularly in high boost applications where there's a lot of exhaust gas back pressure. The factory electric wastegate actuators can end up being blown open. So Turbosmart engineered this so it will resist up to 80 psi of exhaust back pressure in their 60mm wastegate application. It produces I think it was 1200 newtons of force. Now that's great from a performance application and really steps above where those OEs are. The downside is though it does require a lot of current in order to drive that motor, so 20 amps peak. Now this is going to be a bit problematic because I'm not aware of any ECU manufacturers right now who can actually control that. 20 amps is a lot to pass through one pin. Generally this works basically on the same premise as a drive-by-wire throttle body, so most of the ECUs are set up to control those, but they might be somewhere in the region of 15 amps peak. So a little bit of talk about how that's going to be dealt with. Turbosmart are also talking about bringing out their own controller that would essentially go between the ECU and the electric wastegate to get around that problem with current flow or current limitations. The system itself works, as I said, basically like a drive-by-wire throttle body. It is a motor that can be stepped open or closed by the ECU, and it has a position sensor in it so that the ECU also knows how far open or closed the wastegate is. So probably not something that's going to suit everyone with a street car, but definitely for those really pushing the boundaries. There's some exciting applications to come out with the electric wastegate as it starts seeing more and more sort of traction out there in the market, so watch out for that. The other one that I spied that really took my fancy was Rob Dahm's FD-RX7. If you've been watching Rob's YouTube channel, you're probably already well familiar with this car. It's pretty well internet famous, but essentially a quad rotor turbocharged engine that is fitted into an FD-RX7 that's essentially now completely tube framed. It's also interestingly a four-wheel drive as well, so it uses a Hollinger 6-speed sequential gearbox running into a Nissan GTR transfer case off the back of that gearbox, and then forward to a BMW diff and rear to a Winters quick change. So got a full tech tour with Rob coming out about that car. So just a couple of snippets of stuff that took my fancy anyway. We've got a huge amount of content that we'll be releasing over the coming months, and I know that you're going to really enjoy what we've got to show you. Lastly, before we headed back to New Zealand, we also stopped back in Austin, Texas, and we headed to our friend Dave's rally ranch. So Dave runs the Rally Ready Driving School based out of Austin, Texas, and we stayed with Dave for a couple of days and we filmed some awesome content for our sister company RaceCraft. So we've got a free 4-part series on the basics or fundamentals of rally car driving. So this was one of the two cars that I was driving for that demonstration. It's a Subaru WRX, actually a little bit deceptive because this is a 2.5 litre NA engine in it, so no turbocharger, no intercooler, and actually just went to show just how much fun you can have on gravel or a loose surface with a minimal amount of power. So, and specifically there, the techniques that we were learning from Dave was the technique of left foot braking, really key skill for any rally driver, allowing you to manipulate the attitude of the car while it's on the track or out on a gravel road. So that's the problem with rallying, you don't get to really see what's around that next corner, so it's the ability to adjust the car's attitude on the fly so that you get the best possible results without ending up putting the car off the side of a bank. Now we have also just released our latest video today, so again if we head across to my laptop screen, this is one we shot back during our tour of the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Afterwards we headed to RPE. We talked to James about the development of their Suzuki Hayabusa based V8, and in particular here we're talking to James about the relationship between compression ratio and pump fuel, compression ratio and the octane rating of the fuel that you are able to run on, as well as we talk about squish. So for those who want a little bit more detailed sort of aspects of the internal design of engines, particularly high output engines like this Hayabusa based V8, then check out that video on our YouTube channel. Right, lastly, we are still running our VIP deal. It's not a lot of time left to go for our VIP deal, and I just want to give you a quick rundown on what that VIP deal is. So the VIP deal gives you complete access to all of our courses. So if you have been considering learning with High Performance Academy, then this is definitely the most cost-effective way to go. I'll put it out there, it's not going to be the way that everyone wants to learn. If you're only interested in purchasing maybe 1 or 2 courses, maybe there's one core subject that you're interested in learning, then that's not going to be suited for you. But if you really want to broaden your knowledge on all of the range of topics that High Performance Academy does cover, engine building, tuning and wiring, as well as all of the courses that we've got planned for the future, this is definitely the most cost-effective way of doing so. So I'll run through what is included and how it works. There is a page, I'll get the team to drop a link in that you can follow. There's a little video that covers it as well as some more information about it. So you're going to get access to every single course we've already produced and everything we produce in the future. You'll never pay for another course. There is, however, a one-time fee of $1,597 US. Now, we know that represents amazing value for money right now, but we also understand that's a huge chunk of cash to come up with. So we can see here you do have the ability to split that payment down. I think off the top of my head you can split that down over as many as 16 weeks, bring it down to just a touch under $100 a week. We've only got 49 spaces left for this package deal, and it's running for around about another 20 days, so there is only a short amount of time left to get involved. Now there's all of the information here about all of the courses that are included. I'm not going to go through all of those, but basically total course content now values about $2,400, and we've got about the same amount of value already developed, already in the pipeline to come out. So you'll never pay for another course in your life. You also get full gold membership access, so you're going to get access to all of our webinars and our forum for life. Now, as an added bonus, we are also including VIP membership to our RaceCraft sister company. So RaceCraft covers vehicle development for race drivers, as well as driver development as well. So you'll learn how to basically modify and improve your race car, as well as improve your own driving. So that's another $1,300 worth of value. So total value on this deal comes in at about $7,000, $1,597. Only 21 days left to get involved, so don't miss out. Again, check that link if you want to find out a little bit more. There's a full list of everything we've got planned, everything that you will get in there, so I don't need to go into too much detail now. All right, thanks for watching there, guys. Give me a moment and we will get started with today's webinar.
If you like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you're subscribed. We release a new video every week. And if you like free stuff, we've got a great deal for you. Click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson.